the first thing we have to do, like we said yesterday, is leave the absolute value alone. So what do?
We divide the 6.
Divide by -6 on both sides. And we get absolute value of 5 minus 2y equals 3/2. Because 9/6 is 3/2. You can put it in your calculator, hit math enter if you don't believe me. Okay? Now, is the absolute value alone? Yes. So we're ready to make two equations. And we don't change what's inside the absolute value. We just change the answer. So in this case, we are subtracting 5. So that should be -2y equals, that's -10 halves. So that's -7 halves, I believe. Somebody check that on the calculator for me.
Yeah, -7 halves.
And when we subtract here, it's going to be -13 halves. So -2y equals -13 halves. Okay? So now we have to leave the y alone. We divide by -2. And we get 7/4. And here when we divide by -2, we get 13/4, I believe. Somebody check that for me. Yes, in the y equals screen, put this on the first y equal and this on the second. Always go to the original problem. Everybody do that. You should still be in ask, and then you're going to hit second graph and key in 7/4 and 13/4. When you see variables inside the uprights but also outside the uprights, outside on the other side, those are the ones that are most likely to have problem answers that don't work. So you absolutely have to check these. The other ones I'd like you to check, these you have to check. If you don't, you're going to get them all wrong, probably, or most of them wrong. So, is the absolute value alone? On the left side, is the absolute value alone?
Yeah.
Yep, there's nothing hanging on to that absolute value. We're ready to go. So we're going to do our two equations. Now I want you to pay attention here. You're going to write 4w minus 1 equals 5w plus 37. And how do you think we changed the sign of the 5w 37 over here? Minus 5w minus 37. You change all the signs. Okay? Now I want you to leave the w alone by putting all the w's on one side and all the numbers on the other and solving for w. Go ahead and do that. So when I subtract 5w, I get -w equals, when I move this -1 over here across the bridge, equals 38. So w equals -38. And here I do 9w equals -36. So w equals -4. And when you check the calculator, which one works?
-4.
And that one does not. So if you leave it like that, I'm good. If you just leave it just like that, I'm good. All right, the first thing we're going to do is divide both sides by 6. And we have absolute value of 4 minus n equals -1/2 n. So far, so good? That's absolute value. So now we set up our two equations. 4 minus n equals -1/2 n, and 4 minus n equals 1/2 n. So now we're going to add n to both sides. So 4 equals, when you add 1, you get 1/2 n. And when you divide by 1/2, you get n equals 8. Over here, you add n, and you get 4 equals 3/2 n. And when you divide by 3/2, it's the same as multiplying by 2/3. You should get 8/3 equals n. When we check both of these answers, neither one works, so it's no solution. And if you look at the graph kind of looks like this. So they're never going to intersect ever, ever, ever. That's why it's also no solution when you look at it. Okay?